Before we dive into story, please subscribe to our channel. That would help me a lot, and you can change your mind anytime. Now let's begin the story. I could hardly believe my eyes as I stood in the doorway of my suburban home, gazing upon a sight I never imagined I'd see. My wife, Kelly, the woman I loved and trusted for the past decade, naked and tangled in bed with Brad, our neighbor from down the street. What the hell is going on here? I shouted, overwhelmed with a mix of fury and anguish. Kelly and Brad scrambled to cover themselves with the sheets, both looking back at me with deer-in-headlights expressions. "Evan, I can explain," Kelly cried, tears welling up in her eyes. But I didn't want to hear her excuses. Without saying another word, I stormed out and slammed the door behind me, feeling nothing but betrayal and humiliation. My whole body shook with adrenaline and anger as I sped to the office of my best friend Sam, who ran the local newspaper. I recounted the sordid details of what I'd witnessed, how my wife had apparently been carrying on an affair with Brad for who knows how long behind my back. "We have to get revenge," I told Sam heatedly. An icy look of determination crossed his face. "I agree completely," he responded. "I know just what to do too. We're going to expose those two-timing snakes to the whole town. I'll write an article laying out all the dirty details of their tawdry affair for everyone to see." It was risky, but the thought of public retribution against Kelly and Brad appealed to me in my frenzied state. Sam and I got to work gathering evidence. Text messages, emails, even photos proving the length and intensity of my wife's betrayal. We also started interviewing neighbors on the sly, many of whom gasped at the revelations. Within a few days, Sam had compiled all the sordid proof into a shocking, lurid article. Even I felt a twinge of hesitation as he showed me the final draft with its screaming headline splashed across the top: "Local wife and Jim Rat's illicit months-long affair exposed." But my anger and the desire for payback overwhelmed any misgivings. We sent it to print. The next morning, I witnessed firsthand the fallout of our scheme. All around town, people buzzed about the story as they read copies of Sam's paper. Kelly's clients abandoned her real estate firm. The gym fired Brad. Their tearful parents berated them. The community they'd known their whole lives started shunning them. My betrayal had turned them into pariahs. Their reputations were in tatters along with their careers. I finally allowed myself to feel a sense of grim satisfaction seeing Kelly and Brad suffer social consequences. But legal ramifications were hitting them too. Lawsuits were piling up while divorce papers made their way to Kelly. They deserved it all, I told myself. The pain and humiliation they caused me had boomeranged back to destroy their lives too. I decided I could now make a clean break from my lying, cheating wife. The sweet revenge was enough for me to pick up the pieces and move on. I moved out of the suburban house I'd shared with Kelly and into a downtown bachelor pad. It was time for a fresh start. Through an online dating app, I eventually met Nora, an attractive, quick-witted journalist who worked for the Herald, a newspaper rivaling Sam's publication. We immediately hit it off, conversing over coffee. She had an edgy, no-nonsense attitude I appreciated after Kelly's betrayal. Nora also shared fascinating stories of her globe-trotting life as an investigative reporter. I found myself opening up as well about my former life with Kelly, the messy divorce I was finalizing, and the tabloid-esque article Sam had published at my urging. Well, it did make for some salacious reading. Nora smirked over her cappuccino as I gave her the rundown. I chuckled in admission. The more time we spent together, the more I realized Nora was exactly the fresh start I needed. Within a few exhilarating weeks, we made our relationship official. I was falling hard for this exciting, beautiful woman. Meanwhile, Kelly and Brad's lives grew increasingly miserable under the weight of the public shame and anger they now faced daily. They moved together into a small apartment, now outcasts from their former social circles and jobs. My heart hardened whenever I heard news about them struggling to piece their lives back together. "You made your bed," I thought coldly. Occasionally they tried reaching out to apologize and make amends, but I ignored every tearful voicemail and letter. The old wounds still stung too sharply. I wanted no reminders of the life I was thrilled to leave behind. I was moving onwards and upwards, or so I believed. Nora and I grew closer by the day. My career also took off as I invested the money from selling the suburban house into some smart commercial property downtown. For 6 blissful months, everything seemed perfectly on track. Until the fateful day Nora asked me to meet at a quiet restaurant I'd never heard of before. Her smile held none of its usual warmth as I sat across from her. As I puzzled over what was wrong, Nora slid a manila envelope across the table. "I'm afraid I haven't been fully honest with you, Evan," she said coldly. "Open it." Confused, I tore open the envelope and my gut dropped. Photos of Nora talking and laughing with Brad stared up at me. In others, she handed him thick stacks of paper. Shocked, I started frantically reading through sheets of financial records, emails between the Herald and Nora discussing me. Surprise, Evan, Nora said bitterly as the truth dawned on me. Brad's not just your backstabbing neighbor, he's also my brother. I've been working with him from day one to get revenge. All those stories I shared? Lies. I used you to get the scoop on Sam's paper after your little stunt ruined Brad's life. And I did it by getting embarrassingly close to you. My head spun. Nora, this woman I loved, had utterly betrayed me too. It was bad enough to learn she'd fabricated so much between us. But the rest of the documents showed she had secretly been publishing sensational, utterly fabricated articles painting me as a corrupt slumlord destroying the city. Why are you doing this, Nora? I rasped weakly, still reeling. You really hurt people when you decided to go scorched earth, Evan, she replied. Did you even stop to think about the innocent lives you burned down trying to destroy my brother? He has a gambling problem. Kelly was just trying to help him out. But they made one mistake, and you ruined them. I flashed back with a pang of remorse to all those celebratory drinks with Sam, willfully ignoring whispers that some of the affair details were exaggerated. We had been reckless, even cruel, in our quest for vengeance. Nora continued coldly, Well now, Evan, it's your turn. By the time we leak that you and Sam falsified details to juice up your revenge porn story, you'll both be ruined. And I'll be there smiling while it all goes down. It was clear at last. In trying to destroy others, my ruthless hunger for revenge had boomeranged back to burn down my own life. I pleaded and argued with Nora and Brad, but they remained resolute, stone-faced. As I stumbled away from that restaurant, I felt utterly lost, scared, and alone. My career, relationships, reputation, all of it teetered on the brink of collapse thanks to my own stupid thirst for payback. I had no idea what would come next or how much darker things might get. All I knew was that I desperately needed help. So I resolved to swallow my pride and dial Sam's office first thing in the morning. Maybe together we could find some way out of this nightmare. The next morning, I could barely keep my hands from shaking as I dialed Sam's office number. All I got was an automated message saying the line had been temporarily disconnected. I tried his cell phone too, but it went straight to voicemail. Fear and confusion mounted inside me. Why wasn't Sam answering? I began calling our mutual friends, but none had heard from him since the publication of our explosive revenge article. With growing panic, I remembered the evidence Nora had confronting me, something about Sam getting arrested. As a last resort, I drove to the local police station to inquire whether Sam had gotten into any legal trouble. The officer at the front desk gave me a long, judging look before confirming that Sam had indeed been arrested for hacking into his former newspaper rival's systems. He obtained private emails and documents that formed the basis for our now questionable article meant to shame Kelly and Brad. There's also the matter of potential drug charges, the officer added sternly. We found a sizable amount of illicit substances when raiding his home. My heart dropped. Not only had our reckless revenge plot ruined lives, it had also masked the depth of my dear friend Sam's personal troubles. I reeled with shock and remorse at this bombshell revelation of Sam's struggles with addiction and unlawful behavior. I had been so consumed with rage towards Kelly and Brad that I neglected the signs of Sam spiraling himself. I adamantly told the officers I would post bail and do whatever was needed legally to help Sam get treatment and redeem himself. But when I was finally allowed a brief visit to Sam in his holding cell, the sight crushed me. He sat haggard, defeated, a ghost of his formerly vibrant self. Still, his eyes lit up when he saw me. I apologized profusely for involving him in this madness and pledged my full support, even though that was little consolation amidst the wreckage caused by our lust for vengeance. It's all right, Evan, Sam said weakly, placing a forgiving hand on my shoulder. We both made mistakes driven by anger. What matters now is that we take responsibility moving forward instead of making things worse. I left the police station with heavy steps, but a strange sense of relief knowing Sam at least maintained his grace and integrity even in dire straits. I drove aimlessly around town for hours trying to make sense of everything. All I felt was empty. I couldn't go back to my office or condo knowing they were surely under surveillance by Nora and Brad. There was nowhere left to turn. Nowhere except. Before I even realized where my car had taken me, I found myself parked outside the suburban house I once shared with Kelly. Here in the early twilight, the once happy home only echoed with reminders of past joy and pain. What did I possibly expect to gain from coming back here? I wondered bitterly. I headed towards the front walkway nonetheless, wrestling with messy emotions long buried. Just then, the front door creaked open, casting a tall, graceful silhouette I'd recognize anywhere even through the glow. Kelly stood frozen staring at me, her hair softly framing eyes that still made my heart skip beats despite everything. "Evan, what are you doing here?" Kelly finally whispered. Swallowing nervously, I started explaining the whole sordid truth. My blossoming romantic betrayal at Nora's hands intertwined with the pressured collapse of Sam's well-being, and the imminent likelihood I'd lose everything as a result. As Kelly listened attentively, her green eyes gleamed brighter and brighter with tears. "Why did we let rage blind us so badly, Evan?" she murmured when I finished. "I know that I hurt you deeply with my mistakes too, but I let myself get manipulated by Brad and my weakness, and I'm so very sorry for the pain it caused." I stood stunned as Kelly continued explaining how Brad took advantage of her sympathy and support during his intense gambling troubles by eventually coercing her into the affair. It didn't erase what happened, but it did lessen the volcanic outrage I'd harbored at the thought she betrayed our marriage so willfully. In my drive for vengeance, I robbed us both of chances long ago to communicate openly and honestly when it mattered most. I saw that now with sorrow and regret. Impulsively, I moved forward and pulled Kelly into a fierce hug. To my surprise, she hugged me back as we lingered in the half-light, both crying quietly for all we sacrificed and lost out of pride and fear. I knew I needed her now more than ever if I hoped to salvage anything decent moving forward. Miraculously, over the coming weeks, Kelly and I indeed slowly nurtured our relationship back to life. The forgiveness came more readily than either of us imagined as we grieved and comforted one another over past mistakes. In the process, we rediscovered the caring, communicated, and trust that first drew us together during simpler, better times. The legal reckoning I dreaded came next when Brad and Nora eventually followed through with their blackmail threats. But with Kelly steady and supportive at my side, I endured the bruising court battles over the next year that ultimately left my reputation, career, and bank account severely battered. The judge showed limited mercy in light of the facts, but Sam and I avoided actual jail sentences at least partly thanks to Kelly and my other friends rallying behind us. We celebrated the outcome afterwards not with champagne toasts but quiet relief paired with vegetarian lasagna over games of Scrabble. Kelly always creamed me even before I started losing my edge at wordplay too. Those humble nights together brought me greater joy than any thrills during my blind, foolhardy quest for revenge. It no longer mattered what any lurid tabloid headlines wrote about me anyway. Slowly the gossip did fade as I started life anew in humble anonymity by Kelly's side, fixing up old houses while she soon opened a thriving little bookshop downtown. We reconnected with community, made new friends, helped others when we could. We grew our little family as well when Kelly gave birth to our sweet son Bryce 3 years to the day after I first showed up again unannounced on our doorstep. Out of the ashes of past, new hopes finally emerged one tender moment at a time. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your precious time. If you enjoyed this story, then please make sure you subscribe to this channel. That would help me a lot. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.